The basil variety I will be planting today from seed will be Thai basil. I harvested the Thai basil seeds from last year's garden. The Thai basil was planted away from any other basil to prevent any cross-pollination. The water I just placed on the seed starting mix was just to ensure the seed starting mix was nice and wet before I start this process. Notice I am packing the seed starting mix down. This is a very important step when starting seeds and seed starting mix. I used to think coco coir was something that wasn't sold in my area because it's packaged as seed starting mix. So if you read the package, it will say coco coir in fine prints. And just a little side note, I'm not sponsored by any products that you may see in this video. So I did sprinkle a few of the Thai basil self-harvested seeds into my hands, and then I'm lightly sprinkling them on the top of the soil. It's very important you do not bury these tiny seeds. And if you were wondering what that little white stick is sitting out of the seed starting tray, you're going to see them quite throughout the video. They are plastic sucker sticks that are sold for culinary uses, and I did write on it with a fine tip permanent marker. I'm okay with using permanent markers, and I can also remove it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol because I'm not a fan of plastic waste. I do not intend on using the plastic marker sucker sticks out in the garden. These are just simply for the seed starting trays. I do a lot of seed starting in the early gardening season, so it helps to know which seeds are which because a lot of seedlings do look the same and you cannot tell until they get a little older. Now that I have all the seeds in the seed starting mix that is compact and pre-moistened, I'm gently spraying them in. This helps ensure the seeds do not get buried in the seed mix. Burying basil seed is not necessary, and it could affect if your seed germinates or not. This is a picture of some basil that I grew a while back ago. This is after a pruning, and I am showing this to show, yes, you do need to prune basil. If you do not prune your basil, it will start to go into flowering, and when it blooms, it creates seeds, also changing the flavor of your basil. And when you prune it at the leaf nodes, you'll see tiny little leaves, and those will shoot up new growth, causing your basil to grow even larger. Harvesting basil, please do not just pull off the leaves. You can also take the cuttings, put them in a little glass of water in a window, and watch them root to create more plants. So you can have harvest after harvest throughout the growing season. Though, let's go back and take a look at the seeds after they've germinated. I'm currently in my greenhouse looking at the Thai basil seeds as they've sprouted, and I did put more than one seed per cell to ensure good germination. Though I don't want to waste any of these plants, so I'm going to separate them and put them in individual cells. A lot of times when people purchase nursery basil, it will come bunched into one pot. And honestly, I separate those two, even though they're larger, more grown, and have more roots. Basil needs a little bit more room to grow, and I don't think bunching them is a good idea. So right here, I have some sunny tomato variety planted, and also there's two here in the C cell, and I'm going to separate them as well until they're into their own pods. That's all you do is you just pick it up, and I have some seed pods that are already over here. I'm just going to place it in there, pinch the soil back, and I'm not going to worry because it's tomato how deep I bury it. I'm going to water it in with the spray bottle, and that's all I'm going to do to that sunny tomato. I don't have these marked, but these are all tomatoes that have grown in other cells with other plants. This one needs to be buried a little bit deeper. Just going to push it down and pinch the soil a little bit. And I can't leave this one over here like that, so I'm just gonna push him back down too and give it a little water. It doesn't need much. The soil's already wet. I'm just watering it back in so the soil's more settled and has less chance of little air pockets. This tomato seedling here looks a little fallen over. Maybe the seed wasn't buried deep enough, so I am going to take this seedling and bury it a little deeper, and it should help it out a lot. I'm just gonna pull, and if I tear the roots of a tomato seedling, it should be okay because they can reroot. So I'm not too worried about what I just did. I'll go ahead and give him a little bit of water, and hopefully that tomato seedling recovers nicely. Put that up. And these I need to prepare the nursery cells for. So this is my pre-moistened seed starting mix, and all it is cocoa coir and perlite. There's no nutrients in there, and I'm not going to feed my plants anything until the true leaves have developed. So I do have the seed starting mix in the cells, so it's not quite ready. I have to make sure that these are not being covered because the roots can grow over that, which is really not a big deal because I would still separate it, though one less thing for me to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this cleaned up a little bit. So today is March 6th, and you don't necessarily need a greenhouse to start your basil now. Pretty much what you need is a forecast that's showing quite a bit of sunny days ahead, and seed starting cells such as this comes with a miniature greenhouse top. So all you really need to do is set that on top in a sunny day and it will heat up. But if you're seeing a lot of condensation on the lid, it's more than likely getting too hot. So this is not necessarily just for adding humidity and sprouting seeds. It's also to raise the temperature up on sunny days so you can start a little earlier. So these are all ready. They're not exactly all compact, so I'm going to worry more about that once I separate the basil and put it in the cells. So what I'm going to do, it may be a little harder because I'm pretty positive the roots have not formed enough to where I can just pop it out. So I'm just squeezing the bottom a little bit and it pops up a little. I'm just going to grab that mass of soil, set it in the palm of my hand, and just pick them up like this. And then go ahead and sit them in here first because I can't use both hands with this. I'm just setting them right in their own little cells on top. And all this is just left over, so I'm going to put it back into the cell. And I'm just going to continue to do that. Just push up a little bit on the, there. Go ahead, stick my little marker in there. I'm probably not going to forget what they are because I know what basil looks like. So just sit that up there. Grab these. These are a little stuck together. Not horribly though. Put that up there. That there. And that there. So now that I have two, I don't want these sitting too long. I'm just going to use this little basil marker and move the soil around a little bit. So these are not leggy. They did pretty good. So I definitely don't have to worry too much if I bury it too deep. And if I did bury it too deep, it could end up killing it. I'm just going to water these in as soon as I get them buried. I'm going to take a little bit of this extra soil over here and put it in. Well, it's not soil, it's seed starting mix. I don't know why I say stuff like that. And there's actually no soil at all in potting mix too. It is made up mostly of organic matter and stuff, but the soil outside is not one of them. Another thing is dirt and soil are not the same thing. I might know all this, but sometimes I fail when I'm talking and call potting mix soil. It's actually just a growing medium. So these are all in, except for this one. And I'm going to water them in a little bit with the spray bottle. I don't water any seeds or seedlings with a watering can. And for the reason of that, it's because I don't want the water pressure tossing them around, because they pour a little fast. So that is what we have here. So this one only has 2. I'm just gonna do a little close-up of this. Pulling him out, root all intact. Set it up there for a second so I can get a little hole buried to bury it in. Make sure his root goes all the way in, and it didn't. I'm gonna set him back down. There we go. Just make sure his root goes all the way in that hole. And just do that. So instead of thinning seedlings out, for the most part, you can transplant them. Okay, I got all of that transplanted and through their own cells. Should be good. And I also have some thyme here and some dill that I'm gonna go ahead and finish up. Okay, now the thyme is all in a seed cell by himself, the dill, and should have a good herb garden this year too, along with everything else. And if you've made it throughout this whole video, I would just like to thank you for watching. And as always, don't forget to plant your seeds with a hole. Though basil, not so much. Just put it on top.